When it comes to the artistic challenge of marrying a film's visual language,
She moved to a small town where the rule of law still exists.
with its narrative central themes,
You will not survive here. You're not a wolf. And this is the land of wolves now.
there aren't many better examples to look at than Denis Villeneuve's Sicario. In case you're in need of a quick refresher, Sicario is a cold, brutal, and highly pessimistic meditation on the unfair and immoral power dynamics of institutional corruption that fundamentally asks the question, is it morally justifiable to go to extreme lengths to stop monsters if it means that we become monsters ourselves in the process? And helmed by legendary cinematographer Roger Deakins, the visuals of Sicario tell a very interesting story. So I wanted to take a closer look at a couple of key moments that really capture the essence of what this film is about in some very sneaky but super interesting technical ways. If you've seen the film, right now you're probably expecting me to talk about this bit here. And that's exactly what I'm going to do, because to be honest, if I were to pick the one shot that most obviously captures the central themes and conflicts of Sicario, it would be this one. The first thing that stands out is the visual conflict created by the colours. If we then combine this with the steadily building score, the fact that it is a lingering 41-second long panning wide shot, and its overall placement in the narrative, Villeneuve creates a perfect calm before the storm effect that ratchets up the tension very, very effectively. The thing I wanted to spend time highlighting here though is what an artistic example of blocking along all axes this is. The x-axis, the z-axis, and most notably in this example, the y-axis. Deakins takes care of the z-axis blocking quite smoothly by having the second group of soldiers entering at a very shallow depth in the frame. To be honest, I don't think this does much other than create a more interesting three-dimensional shot, but when you're dealing with silhouettes, that takes some skill. Then there's the movement on the x-axis, which has a direction of right to left. Now, left to right is typically the most visually acceptable x-axis motion for us humans. It's how we read, it's how we represent time, it's the direction we associate with progress, whether that's in film or video games. So flipping this visual convention on its head and having the direction in which both the camera pans and the soldiers move being right to left is likely a deliberately unsettling example of blocking and camera movement by Deakins and Villeneuve. And tonally, it's perfectly suited for this moment in Sicario's narrative, especially when we combine it with the blocking in the y-axis, because crucially, the soldiers are moving downwards through the frame here. That's probably the thing I like most about this shot, because it just nails the essence of the film so succinctly. This is a film about seemingly moral figures controversially descending into the dark underworld of illegality and doing some pretty corrupt things.
What? You're afraid of the dark.
How do you show that to an audience? Like this. Shot compositions don't get much better. And this brings me to the main thing I want you to take away from this video. The three-dimensionality of Sicario's visual language, which is both fascinating and thematic. Deakins and Villeneuve make use of the three dimensions of their frames, the x-axis, the z-axis, and most importantly the y-axis, to emphasize power dynamics, foreshadow certain aspects of the story and its characters, and bring a far greater sense of verticality to the viewing experience. And so let's rewind a bit and pick up here at arguably the most important scene in the film. The moment that Emily Blunt's character Kate Mesa decides to begin her descent into darkness. Now there are so many interesting technical decisions hidden in these frames, but I wanted to start with this shot here. The decision to introduce Josh Brolin's Matt Graver in a group shot with the back of his head to us, 4 fairly senior looking characters positioned around him, and him not only being center of the frame but the largest presence in the frame. All of these decisions strategically convey both his level of seniority and mysteriousness. It's a quick but slick introduction to his very enigmatic, elusive character. The most interesting shot for me, however, is here. There's so much to this composition worth talking about. Firstly, there's how the characters are lit. All 4 men bathed in light, with Kate becoming some sort of silhouette as she is framed in front of them, intentionally and metaphorically putting her in the dark as to what's actually going on in this room. More importantly though is what we can discern from the blocking of this scene. Kate's positioning on both the X and Z axes is pretty significant here. Yes, it adds some nice depth to the frame having Kate where she is, but the more significant move is going from the balanced composition of Graver's introduction to a now unbalanced composition. It's subtle, but it's a nice way of foreshadowing how, by stepping into this room, Kate's world and understanding of the legal system is about to become more and more crooked.
What the fuck are we doing?
The other and perhaps most important thing to note is how Kate's silhouetted figure vertically cuts the frame and separates Graver from the rest of the men, creatively conveying how he operates in a very different world with a very different sense of legality to these men. We can tell how important it was to communicate this dichotomy from this very slight camera adjustment that happens right here when this guy takes his seat and as Kate's boss says this.
This is Matt Graver. He'll be leading the team.
Not only does this very intentional camera movement help to create the visual disconnect between Graver and these men that Villeneuve clearly wanted, it also helps to visually reinforce the implicit sense of superiority from Graver's mysterious introduction shot. This subtle reframing gives Graver just that little bit more space in the frame than the other men, and ensures our gaze shifts over to him along with Kate's, with the net effect being that we, the audience, feel his presence in the room that much more. It's the type of subtle, story-driven camera movement that Deakins often uses in his compositions to bring another level of dynamism to scenes like this that would otherwise be quite flat, elevating the storytelling of these moments beyond their dialogue. And now, I'm going to scrape the barrel a bit and consider things on the y-axis, where Graver is placed ever so slightly lower down in the frame. Maybe this is a sly way of conveying how much more closely he operates to the underworld of Illegality, or maybe it was just an unintentional byproduct of the way the characters have been arranged in the frame. As a firm proponent of Roger Deakins' genius,
I'm a pretty good cook actually, but
and how often we see a sense of verticality in this film's cinematography, I'm going with my initial interpretation. I'll let you pick your own lane. One last thing I enjoy about this sequence is the camera work employed throughout the conversation. Firstly, when we look Kate in the eye, she's either framed with a lot of negative space around her, visibly detached from her partner, from a distance dwarfed by the presence of the men in front of her, or in close-up, invading her personal space as she is so impersonally picked apart by Graver.
Do you have a husband?
Divorced?
Taken together, these compositions all work very well to visually communicate how isolated and powerless Kate is throughout this entire exchange, and the male-dominated nature of her world, which was a key aspect of this story Villeneuve wanted to emphasize. Overall, the interplay between Kate and Graver is handled so nicely by Deakins throughout this sequence, with Graver's deflective, sarcastic nature captured in the way the camera is never at eye level with him, until this final close-up shot here.
Do we get an opportunity of the men responsible for today?
The only moment in which he tells the truth.
The men who are really responsible for today, yeah.
Now that's how you use the camera to tell a story. To me, these are the types of scenes that separate the best cinematographers from the rest of the pack. The cinematographers who can take what in many ways could be an extremely bland, by-the-numbers dialogue exchange and layer it with these types of subtleties and interesting visual storytelling techniques that support the story's thematic subtext so soundly. It's one of the many things that Roger Deakins nailed throughout his exceptional career, and one of the things that I think makes Sicario stand out as such a fine example of his cinematography. Thank you very much for watching.